earlier, this session will be recorded, and I will be taking notes as you're having discussion. Please remain muted until you have something to say. And we will be going over the 3 guiding questions as it relates to transportation and nutrition for the 3 instructional models: in-person instruction, remote instruction, and a combination of both. So we'll get started with the first guiding question. What do you think are the greatest challenges that GCS will face under each of the 3 instructional models? And please raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and I can call on you to speak. Linda, go ahead.
Well, I think for transportation, it's the obvious. I think it's all going to depend on what the state tells us we have to do. So if the kiddies are going to be back in the building in September, I think it's all going to depend on what New York State tells us we have to do, what our guidelines are for the kids' safety and well-being on a school bus. I guess the greatest challenge for GCS is that some of our children are on the bus for an hour and they live out in Ankrum. And if we have to do more than one run, some of the kids may have to start out very early in the day. So, that's going to be challenging. And I don't know how we're going to get around that. Right now there's so many different rumors out there how, the state's going to go about handling it. And one being, like 25% of the kids on the bus. Well, I don't know how we're going to do that. Get them all here by 8:15 and start the day. You know what I mean? I think that's a huge challenge right now. But I do really believe that we really can't make any plans until we know what the state's going to tell us we have to do.
Thank you.
We could have all these plans in place, but the state obviously is going to be the one who is going to tell us what we have to do.
Yes, Judy? You'll need to unmute yourself.
What we're trying to do now is identify what some of the challenges would be. And I think for both transportation and eating, congregating is the issue that is a huge problem. Congregating in both a cafeteria situation or congregating in a classroom scenario. Obviously, they're going to work out safety in classrooms, but that's a concern for eating. Eating in classrooms, an issue that comes up is food allergies, and having a kid exposed to food allergies, or having kids that have food allergies being kind of separated out, and those are now the only kids that they'll interact with at Germantown because they'll get put in the same classes, etc. So those types of issues, but also from a logistical angle from the cafeteria staff, if there's school in session and they have to serve, how are they going to serve meals so that there's space enough so that there's not too many people in a cafeteria? How early can we start serving meals and how late can we serve meals for people to be fed at a reasonable time? And if kids are fed in the classroom, how do you prepare those meals and transport those meals with staff? Are teachers supposed to then not have a lunch and supervise kids in the classroom? So the staffing component seems to be a challenge in the logistics of, getting, it's different when you go through a cafeteria line as opposed to having to package meals and have them delivered to the classroom. And it's a different staffing component as well. So to me, those seem like big challenges if we're in person. And remotely, I'm sure your cafeteria staff, your food staff has dealt with that nightmare, of trying to deliver meals to kids. How do you transport meals to kids' houses? How do you deliver, have people pick up meals from school when you're dealing with parents working in different situations, maybe not readily available to go pick up those meals? Packaging meals for delivery to homes, and pickup is also a different beast than kids going through a cafeteria line. So, and then the combination, then we just have both those challenges to figure out.
Thank
So
you.
anyway, that's what I feel like are some of our main hurdles in those three categories.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Beth, go ahead. You'll need to unmute yourself.
I totally agree with what Judith just said. School lunch is going to be, as we knew it, a thing of the past. And I've been giving it a lot of thought on how we could handle the situations that we're going to be faced with, whether we are in the building or whether we are working remotely, as we did for 3 months. The kind of thoughts that I've had is that if lunches were going to be served in the classroom, as Judith said, we have the great risk of the allergies now. Even if kids are bringing food from home, we are now in a confined situation where whatever they brought from home, they'd have to make sure that there weren't anything that other children in the classroom couldn't have. The way that I'm kind of looking at it is, if we did have to feed in the classroom, it would be a case where a roster would have to be, well, actually a count would have to be taken in the morning who was going to have lunch that day, so we knew exactly who we were preparing for, and then either transport it to the classrooms or have,
You for 1 minute. Can we save that topic for the next question? We want to just focus on challenges right now, and then we want some concrete examples for the next discussion.
sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Judy. You'll need to-
I guess challenges for transportation would be, how do we space kids out? How do we get proper ventilation on the bus in winter months? Other challenges would be, trying to do that with getting people, if kids are all going to start at the same time, how do we get everyone there at the same time? I'm not as familiar with the struggles of transportation workers to identify a lot of the issues, but that's what I can think of off the top of my head as being a challenge.
Thank you. Anyone else on that topic for challenges? Okay, we will move on to the next guiding question. Can you provide concrete examples of creative solutions to challenging problems that could work in our school under each of the 3 instructional models: in-person instruction, remote instruction, and a combination of both? Beth, do you want us to start with you?
Sure. Well, if we were remote, we would have to do what we have been doing for the last 3 months. Whether parents at this stage would still be able to come and pick up lunches, or we would have to provide more by busing, that would be a challenge as well. So I think that as far as not knowing what we're going to be doing in September, is the biggest challenge, especially and considering that we have a limited staff, as far as what we can actually do in a short period of time.
Okay, and you mentioned before you had some examples of solutions for us.
Well, if we are in the building, what I'm thinking is, as I mentioned, we would ask the teachers in the morning to send down who would be buying that day so that we knew we were preparing just for that amount. We could even go as far as putting names on the lunches that are being prepared, and once they're taken either back to the classroom or they're social distanced and brought down to an area to take their lunch through a line and then go to a bigger place to have the lunch, either it be an auditorium or outside, not an auditorium, sorry, either a gym or outside. I don't know how we would handle breakfast, because breakfast was something that we always handled when the walkers came in and we had the large amount of kids in the cafeteria in the morning, which is something we're not going to be able to do anymore. So breakfast is probably almost a bigger concern right now than lunch. Whatever it takes to put a lunch out, we can definitely do. The challenge is there. We'll own up to it and do it. But breakfast is a concern unless breakfast moved strictly to the classroom.
Thank you. Anyone else? Judy?
I know my husband's a food director, and one of the things that they did before pandemic was certain classes did have signed up for breakfast in the classroom. You know, and with staffing issues, that can be logistically a bit of a nightmare as well. But they had the roster sheet, and you know, there's all sort of government guidelines of what constitutes a meal, and you know, it's not just throwing food at kids. There is so much involved with it. When he did breakfast in the classroom, everyone got breakfast in the classroom, and it was like a couple of, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of variety as far as choices, you know, and it wasn't hot meals that were given in the classroom. And that was really the only way, because, you know, who took 2 lunches, who did this, who did that, and you can't keep track of it. They just did it blanket for each classroom. Everyone got it available, and it was limited stuff, you know, didn't include hot meals. The other thing is, as far as allergy goes in the classroom, I think the allergies that are of main concern are the ones that can be airborne, because you're in a contained classroom. You know, kids can't get away from that. The other allergies that I think are of concern are the ones that are anaphylactic, but come in the form of, you know, for the little kids where, you know, they're touching everything, things that are easily spread. And I know that there's a lot of schools that are nut-free. And I know that's not a popular decision, but it's not a popular thing. I think that if you ask parents, do you want your child to see another child die in the classroom of an anaphylactic reaction, which is very real. So it might be time for Germantown to go nut-free, and some of the other allergies that aren't airborne might be easier for us to troubleshoot.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the next guiding question. What institutional, budgetary, and regulatory obstacles, including policies, stand in the way of our success in each of the 3 instructional models? Again, in-person instruction, remote instruction, and the combination of both. Go ahead, Beth.
Well, I think that if we had to remotely do the lunches and or the pickups again, I think the cost of the transportation is a big factor in that, as far as trying to get the food to where it needs to be.
Thank you. Go ahead, Judy.
I think also with budget is, you know, with the cafeteria, the way that that is going to look, they might need additional staffing
Got it.
for that, because there might be packaged meals that have to go out. It's really going to be challenging. I think another huge challenge with that is the state regulations with what constitutes a meal. You know, they have to adhere to, or else you don't get reimbursed for these meals. The issue that comes up with that is now you have to try to make meals that, or if you're teaching remotely or if you're bringing things into the classroom, now you have to prepare meals that can easily be packaged, and you're not going to have things spilling in the bag when people are delivering it. There has, I know from my husband's angle, it's been a challenge because some of the foods are not available, the easily, you know, like snackables, you know, an easy thing to distribute. So I think that there is going to be a lot of state regulation, as there already is, as to what needs to be served to these kids. And I think that's going to be a big challenge, you know, as certain products aren't readily available. That's it.
Thank you. And Linda?
Well, for transportation, I think, you know, if we're all back in the building in September, I think that's going to be quite costly because we might have to possibly have additional runs or additional, you know, contracts with the contracting bus companies. But if we're doing it remotely like we were since March, actually the transportation might not be as bad, even if we have to deliver the food, because it wouldn't be as many buses. Not that that's a great, you know, a great scenario. I wouldn't want to, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the answers are. I mean, it's unfortunate because we're all so much in the dark right now that we don't know what's going to happen. But the money, you know, we definitely, because I can't see 50 kids on a bus. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So it's either going to be, you know, 20 kids on a bus or one in every seat, or if they're siblings, maybe they could sit together. But whatever the case is, it's definitely going to cost more money because we're going to need more transportation back and forth to pick up bus pickups.
Thank you. Go ahead, Beth.
Just as Judith was saying, as food service directors, I think the state has to ease up. They have to accept that we're doing everything we can to make the meals what they should be. We are under such strict regulations, and I think the state has to take it, USDA has to take it into consideration a little bit and try to ease some of those regulations up for now, so that we can, you know, prepare a good lunch, a nutritious lunch, a healthy lunch, but maybe not have to meet as many requirements as we are required to do so on a normal year. Although doing the summer, I mean, doing from March to June, we did learn a lot. I think we got smarter every time we sent out a pickup, and we learned a lot on how to handle remotely to send out the meals. But again, I think the state has to ease up on us a little bit.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? We have quite a bit of time left, so feel free to jump in if you have any more discussion items. Go ahead, Judy.
I think for transportation, like if we're troubleshooting different things, obviously in a cafeteria, kids cannot be wearing masks because you have to eat your food. I don't think anyone's figured that one out yet, but you know, on transportation, there's the idea that, you know, we could space kids theoretically, And again, I know really nothing of the logistics of how full buses are right now, how many routes there are, what transportation companies are used where. So I'm really not educated on that. But, you know, siblings together, I think that's an interesting idea. And then spacing and wearing masks. But then you also run into the challenge of, are the kids really going to wear a mask? And then, you know, what parents are going to have issues with their kids wearing masks. So who's going to enforce that? How, you know, what is that going to look like? So I think that that is, it should be easy, you know, and kids should just be able to wear masks. But I don't think it's going to be that easy.
Thank you.
I guess maybe another idea is a staggered start and a staggered end, but then that's also going to be a budgetary nightmare if you're running 2 fleets, you know, of buses in the morning and 2 fleets in the afternoon. So I don't know how realistic something like that would be either.
Thank you. Anyone feel free to jump in at any time. We have quite a bit of time left. Go ahead, Beth.
I'm just kind of wondering what happens with kids that are normally dropped off and then just come into the cafeteria to wait until the bell rings. How would that be handled with parents dropping kids off, as far as where would they go so that they were properly social distanced?
Very good point. So we're actually hoping to have several of these meetings once we sit down with the leadership team and put our plan together, and the state gives us more guidance, or guidance, period. We'll have more meetings and come back and discuss what we know with the group.
Is there any sort of timeline that the state is giving for the guidance?
No, we have no guidance right now at all. So it's just reopening the schools. We're assuming that's going to be September, but we're not even sure of that.
Right. And they don't have a timeline of when they're going to provide guidance?
We're hearing some things that there may be some information out next week, but we never know. From day to day, things change.
There was an interesting guidelines by American Academy of Pediatrics. It's a little bit more pertinent to some of the other team meetings that are going on. But I found some of the guidance in that article interesting. It might be worth looking up.
And what is the article?
From the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it's their reopening guidelines that, you know, includes mental health of these kids and you know, the importance of them being together, you know, combined with the safety of doing that. So it's just a good resource.
Great, thank you. If anyone needs to take a bathroom break, now is probably a good time to do that while we're waiting.
Just out of curiosity, how many people are wearing pajama bottoms right now?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. So I jumped in. I got a text from Dina. You guys, you feel like you're done?
Yes.
Okay, so you solved all the problems in the world. I can't wait to hear this. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And you talked about food for the 3 different scenarios, the
Yeah.
in-school, the hybrid model where some of the kids are home. Did you come up with plans on how to feed the ones that are home when they're not here? And or did you at least identify the challenges with that?
We did have discussion on all of that, yes.
Great. Okay. Well, I think the other folks are really on a roll. So I was planning on bringing everybody back. It's like a half an hour away, though. Is that right? Yeah. 12:55. So we went out at 11:55. So hopefully you'll stay with us, but certainly if you want to take a break and come back in, you can rejoin. If you want to get off, you could actually go out now and then you could just rejoin like you did originally. And when we go back in the big group, I'll see you in the waiting room for the debrief portion. You might want to take a moment even and go into the New York State Ed. So it's nysed.gov. And the homepage says the task force recordings. You have to click on several places, like you have to go into the task force. Then it has the 4 regions, but only region 1 and region 2 have a video. And you can go in and look at the other transportation and operations. You can look at any one of those breakout sessions. It's fascinating what people around the state are saying. So if you want to do that, but at 11:55, I'm going to close all the break rooms, bring everybody back in. If you guys aren't there, I'll carefully watch the waiting room to see if you've re-entered. How's that sound?
Good.
Very good,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, super. See you later.
Okay.